The storm that rolled over the mountains that night felt almost alive, like a creature tearing at the roofs of the tiny village that clung to the edge of the valley. Wind screamed through gaps in the walls, windows shook, and somewhere in the distance a frightened dog barked. But inside a small, crooked house at the end of the road, the storm was nothing compared to the battle happening in one girl's chest. Mira's hands trembled as she folded the last of her mother's shawls and placed it carefully in the wooden trunk. The shawls were old, worn thin, and soft from years of use, an almost pathetic inheritance for a girl barely 19. Everything else had already been sold to survive. Cows, furniture, tools, even the tiny silver earrings her grandmother had given her. Now only debts remained. Her father's voice still echoed in her mind, even a year after his death. "If anything happens to me, go to Lord Arden. He is a just man. He will help you." Maybe once, not now. Lord Arden was a man of power, the ruler of the region, a commander who'd earned his castle through war and his reputation through fear. People said he never smiled, never looked twice at anyone who didn't matter, and never forgave a debt. He was called the Stone Wolf for a reason. But Mira had no choice left. The debt collector had pounded on her door that morning, shouting that the house would be taken if she didn't pay the remaining sum in 3 days. She didn't even have 3 coins. 3 days meant homelessness, and for a girl alone in their world, homelessness meant ruin. So she wrapped her worn shawl around herself, stepped into the storm, and walked toward the mountains where the castle stood like a dark crown against the sky. By the time she reached the gates, her boots were soaked, her fingers numb, and the last of her courage nearly gone. She expected the guards to laugh at her, shove her away, or let the wolves tear her apart. But instead, they let her inside, surprised but curious, and she soon found herself standing in a long stone hall lit by torches. At the far end sat Lord Arden himself. He was exactly as legends described, tall, severe, sharp in every line of posture and expression. His cloak of dark fur draped over one shoulder, and his eyes, a steely gray, watched her with an unreadable calm. He looked powerful enough to command armies and cold enough to freeze oceans. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low and resonant. "My lord," Mira swallowed, wishing her voice didn't shake. "I come because of my father's debt. I have nothing left to repay it. Nothing except myself." Arden's eyes narrowed, not with interest, but with something closer to warning. "Speak plainly." She forced the words out, shame burning her throat. "I can offer my service, I can work in your kitchens, in your stables, or if you require something more, Her breath hitched. "I offer my body, if that is the only way to survive." The torches crackled. Somewhere outside, thunder broke the sky. Arden rose slowly from his seat, and Mira's knees nearly buckled. She thought he would be angry. She thought he might accept. She thought he might laugh. But he did none of those. Instead, he walked toward her until he stood inches away. He was taller than she imagined, broader, and though his presence felt overwhelming, his eyes were not cruel. They were searching. "Who told you," he asked softly, "that your body is a currency?" Mira blinked, confused by the softness in his tone. "No one had to tell me. Life did. This world did." "And you came here thinking I would take advantage of that?" "I came hoping you would at least let me live," she whispered. Arden exhaled a long, slow breath that sounded like frustration mixed with sorrow. "You think survival is worth giving up your dignity?" She lowered her gaze. "If dignity cannot fill a stomach, then yes." He stepped back as if her words physically struck him. Then he spoke with a tone she had not expected. Steady, stern, but not unkind. "I do not take what is not freely given, and I do not accept payment that destroys a person's spirit. Your father served me with honor. I will not dishonor him by exploiting his daughter." Mira's lips parted, but no sound came out. "You will stay here," Arden continued. "You will eat, sleep, and work among my staff, not as a servant of the flesh, but as a worker of the household. In time, you will repay the debt through honest labor, and when it is done, you will be free." Her knees did buckle then, from relief so overwhelming it nearly brought her to tears. "My lord, why? Your father saved my life during the war," he replied. "You owe me nothing." "He died thinking I would protect his family. It seems I am only now keeping my word." For the first time, she heard emotion in his voice, buried deep, but real. The days that followed were unlike anything Mira expected. The castle was strict but not cruel. She was given a warm room, simple clothes, and tasks she could handle. She cleaned, cooked, fetched water, fed the horses, and tried her best to blend into the background. But it was impossible to ignore Lord Arden. He was everywhere, inspecting troops in the courtyard, discussing affairs with advisors, training with his sword at dawn, helping injured villagers who came seeking aid. He was stern but fair, distant but attentive, unyielding but not heartless. And every time their paths crossed, he greeted her, not like a servant, not like someone beneath him, but like a person. No man had ever looked at her that way. Weeks passed, the stormy season faded into spring, and warmth returned to the mountains. Mira worked hard, determined to repay her father's debt faster than expected, but slowly she realized something strange. Arden watched her too. Not with desire, not with hunger. With concern. With interest. With something she didn't dare name. One evening, after long hours of work, Mira walked out to the courtyard to fetch water. She didn't notice Arden standing beneath the old oak tree until she nearly bumped into him. "Long day?" he asked. She nodded, embarrassed by the dirt on her hands and face. "You work too much," he added. "I work to repay the debt sooner. There is no rush." "There is for me," she answered softly. "I don't want to be a burden." "You are not," he said firmly, "and you never were." A silence stretched between them, heavy but gentle. "You know," he added after a moment, "when you first came here offering yourself, I was angry." She stiffened. "I know, I shouldn't have..." "I wasn't angry at you," he interrupted. "I was angry at a world that taught you such things. Angry that desperation drove you to believe you had no worth beyond your body. You deserve better." Her breath trembled. "I didn't think anyone would ever say that to me." "Then let me say it again," he murmured. "You deserve better." She looked up at him then, really looked, and for the first time she saw past the armor and the titles, past the legend, the rumors, the fear. She saw a man carrying his own scars, his own regrets, a man doing his best to honor a promise made long ago. A man who had protected her when he didn't have to. A man who had seen her as human when she thought she was nothing. Arden held her gaze, and something shifted in the air, gentle, warm, unfamiliar. Not desire. Not hunger. Respect. Tenderness. Hope. She lowered her eyes shyly. "Thank you, my lord." "You may call me Arden." Her cheeks warmed. "Thank you, Arden." He smiled then, truly smiled, and it softened every sharp line of his face. It made him look not like a stone wolf, but like a man rediscovering the ability to feel. And for the first time since her father's death, Mira felt safe. Not because Arden was powerful, but because he had chosen not to use that power against her. Months later, when her debt was finally repaid, Arden called her to the same hall where they'd first met. She expected him to dismiss her, to send her back to the village. Instead, he said softly, "You are free, Mira, free to go wherever you choose. But if you wish to stay, not as a debtor, not as a servant, but as someone I respect, then the castle door is open to you." Her heart had already chosen long before her lips answered. "I wish to stay." And the storm that once threatened to destroy her life ended up leading her to a place she never expected, towards safety, dignity, and a quiet, growing affection that neither of them needed to rush. For survival built on desperation could break a soul. But survival built on kindness could heal one. And Mira at last had found the difference.